Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, T minus 11 days before I go home to Phoenix, and it's kind of a mixed bag feeling. I'm definitely excited to get back to my students. I'm a college professor. I'm going to be teaching Calculus 1 and 2. But what I'm not excited about is going back to driving a car for a multitude of reasons. First of all, the big reason being that without driving, I feel like my overall risk is completely decimated, reduced by a factor of 10, easily, probably even more. And here's why. I can't think of anything that I do that's nearly as dangerous as driving. You know, my mom often complains that I don't watch out for my own personal safety, especially lately when I've returned to the dating scene. I sometimes do throw caution to the wind when I go about my dating life. And part of that, I hate to admit it, but part of, especially early in my return to the dating scene last year, not so much anymore, I was really depressed. And in my mind, it was better to be murdered by somebody that I went out with than to just waste my life away. I was dying either way, right? In my mind, that's how it kind of played out last year. Not so much anymore. Now that I'm not so depressed anymore, and more importantly, now that I have more of a choice in my dating life, I am a little bit more cautious now than I was a year ago. Don't tell my mom that I felt that way, but I literally did kind of throw caution to the wind in large part because I was depressed. And so, but even when I was throwing caution to the wind with my dating life, I bet the biggest source of risk of Russian roulette in my life was still the driving, easily. Even when and the other thing my mom was concerned about was all the dangerous art projects I was doing. Even that paled in comparison with the amount of risk I was taking while driving. Aside from life risk, there was a lot of anxiety revolving around it. Obviously, I have a ways to go before I'm financially free, right? And a lot of times I'd be driving on the road, money was tight, and all of a sudden I would find myself in front of a police car, and I would be a nervous wreck. One time I was really late showing up to work because I had been followed by a police car for 2-3 miles. I didn't get pulled over. The police car finally turned away, but I was so drained from that encounter. It was like, you ever run a computer program like you're I'm a Lego artist. Sometimes I have to do a rendering of my Lego build, and if it's a really complex build, it could really drain the battery. If I'm not plugged in, it will really drain the battery. Being in front of a cop car is the equivalent of that. And unfortunately, when after the cop car pulled away, I pulled into a Starbucks to catch my breath, and I lost track of time because I was so mentally drained from that. One time I actually got pulled over. What had happened was I had just lost my job 2 weeks earlier, and money was really tight at the time. I was in the midst of a career pivot, and it was 10 o'clock. I found myself in front of a cop car, and I'm thinking, oh great, there's a little bit of somewhere to pull over so I can pull into this house or apartment, whatever it was, and the cop car could just keep going. And I pull in, and the cop car pulls in with me and flashes his lights. And I'm a nervous wreck because I had just lost my job. I was planning to pivot my career. I knew how much money I had, how long it was going to last, and I couldn't deviate from that. I also had a conference to go to in the coming weeks, so I didn't have time for a court date either. And I had my financial affairs all mapped out. I didn't have room to deviate from that. Let's just put it. I don't know if any of my viewers has ever been in that unenviable position. And the cop car asked me what I'm doing, what I'm up to, I am such a nervous wreck that I just spill the entire story. I had just lost my job, financially pinched. I'm not a lawbreaker. I follow all the rules. In fact, if I, you've been following me for 3 miles, you know that, and I'm just a wreck because of my finances. Just lost my job, and so it helps that I was living out of my car at that point. I had everything mapped out, and he could tell. So. He told me that I pulled into this. It was a church actually, and there have been robberies in the area not that long ago. So he just wanted to make sure everything was good. And why would anybody choose a church to rob of all places? That is kind of funny though. But didn't get a ticket or anything. But again, it's one of those things that causes my heart to mess up. And I probably, needless to say, I probably didn't sleep very well that night. And so I don't have to deal with any of this here, right? The worst that could happen, we did have a little bit of a delay on the train the other day, but that's the worst that could happen, right? And it's not going to cause you're not going to worry about, am I going to be arrested at the end of this trip? Am I going to have an expensive repair bill? And you cannot imagine how big that anxiety is. And I haven't had to think about that. Also, the cost. The other day when I went to go pay for my train pass, it dawned on me I spend less money on my transportation here than I do to just wash my car. Just to wash my fucking car back home in the US. I spend more a month on washing my car than I do for the train ticket here. Can you believe that? And to give you an idea of how this all plays out over in the US, needless to say, my day job barely pays for my expenses. I often have to look for side gigs, right? Side work. I would find side hustles, especially tutoring, right? Sometimes I do private tutoring. Right now, I hope to go back to work with one of my students. He's an 8th grader. No, he's going to be a 9th grader this year. And, but oftentimes you got to drive to their home, right? And needless to say, some of these families could really haggle hard on the price, right? And then now you realize you're risking your life, and after you pay all your car expenses, remember, just washing the car is more expensive than all of my transportation costs here in Taiwan. You realize you're left with little scraps, and you're risking your life to do that. You're getting your heart pounded every time there's a police car behind you. Every time one of the lights goes on in your car, and there might be a hefty repair bill after that, you realize that that's like 8 months worth of tutoring that goes down the drain. And but you need that job because you need your connections. You need that little bit of spare change that you can make. See, it wouldn't play out here in Taiwan. First of all, here in Taiwan, you do a side hustle to get ahead of the game, right? You don't do it just to catch up on your past due bills. And you take a train to go there. You don't have to worry. You might occasionally there might be a delay, but you know what? Even when there's a train delay, I think parents would be very understanding anyway. And for the cost of what it takes to wash your car, you can take the train there, and you don't have to worry about the cop cars. Actually, cops are very friendly here. Although I did have a funny situation with a cop here. I had my money stolen from me. I was complacent. And by chance, a day before that, I happened to photograph all the money. And so I had the serial numbers. And the cop probably thought this was some kind of setup, that I was going to, I was hiding the money and then planning to make an insurance claim. You could tell from his facial expression. That's what he assumed it was. He very reluctantly took down the numbers. Oh, come on. What is this, right? But even then, most cops are pretty friendly, but anyway, that's kind of the whole gist of what driving feels like in the U.S., especially how it then connects with the rest of your life here. And I hope this story goes viral and more people will understand that they don't like driving the way they think, and maybe we'll get something done, right? This is the Peter Light Show. Bum 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 bum.